in the bliss of ignorance. Mighty giants exist. The sky turns angry, raining down boulders of dust. Set ablaze today, their death is a must. Demons of rocks approach, rain of chaos to land. An epic song, an orchestra of death. 60 million years to pass, notes of debris set to sound. It is played loud and strong to pummel from above on waters, cities, and lands. A scientist looks to the sky, her thoughts secure humankind's fate. Doom is set, there is an end date. A plan is presented, all nations agree. Humans will not die, coming together with one goal, one task. Our destiny is not to fade or drift away, but working as one, our mark is here, it will stay. E pluribus unum, a place for all to exist. One from many is the cry, many nations to one people. In the shadows await, set to destroy. Glory to God, His might will be obeyed. The many against the one, sabotage, sacrifice, chaos. The plan for one must never be. A friend's embrace, love is secured. Coded whispers forever here, unafraid. A pilot of great resolve, strength and control into the rocks at her command. Then to rise and side by side, conquering the dust of beast. Success today, coming together in a feast. E pluribus unum, one from many, all to see. Build our arcs, massive and grand, break the bonds of gravity. E pluribus unum, hearts on fire, a symphony of hope, one voice to inspire. From many the one, the stars belong to us. A new dawn arise in an endless night. Our hearts as one, many nations together. E pluribus unum, it shall be done.
The impact sent debris thousands of miles across planet Earth's surface. The shockwave destroyed millions of square miles in seconds. The Earth was scorched from the intense heat wave generated by the impact. It was a wasteland of burnt organic matter that lay spread across a vast area of devastation. No being mourned the loss of the dinosaur. That was the first impact that changed Earth. There would be others. Year 0 hour 0 minute 0 second 0. Chapter 1. Linda Cooper walked into the office and headed straight to her desk. She checked her email and was thankful the inbox had 100 messages instead of 200, like yesterday. Most of her time was spent answering questions. What is your day like? Are there aliens out there? Have you seen Martians? Click, and another email answered. Linda was on her second cup of coffee when Paniqua plopped down at her desk. Girl, traffic sucks. Linda looked over to her coworker and friend. I got lucky this morning and got in front of traffic. How are the kids? Paniqua lifted up her laptop lid and pressed the power button. Good. Jason didn't want to get up, and Brad had a fit that she didn't have the right color red to wear today. Both women laughed. Linda liked Paniqua's daughter, Sally. She was smart, liked boys, and had fashion sense. She was also very pretty and was a straight A student. Paniqua got up, walked into the kitchen area, and popped in a Keurig coffee pack into the coffee maker. It was a Dunkin' Donuts special. Linda answered 3 more emails while Paniqua waited for the machine to finish gurgling out coffee. She sipped at her own lukewarm coffee when she started reading the next email. It was from a friend who got lucky and landed a government job with lots of perks. Linda considered asking her friend Gail several times to introduce her to the director of analysis and actions, but always chickened out. Gail's friendship was important. The thought of Gail thinking the friendship was less than genuine knotted up her stomach. Linda's PhD, based on the idea that a large number of massive meteors crossed Earth's orbit every few million years, would be achieved by her hard work. Though access to one of the world's best supercomputer would get the diploma in her hand sooner rather than later. The coffee, Linda decided, was not salvageable. She pushed the cup aside and read the email. Hey Lynn. Quick note, tomorrow I'm flying in. Let's do lunch, maybe dinner, and possibly breakfast. Wink, LOL. I got something we need to talk about. Kisses. Gail. Linda brushed some loose strands of hair behind her ear. Gail really did have an effect on her. Paniqua sat down sipping her freshly brewed coffee. Gail. Linda rapidly blinked a few times and looked over to her friend. Huh. Gail, right. Maybe, Linda blushed. Teasing you again. Maybe. She twirled some hair around her index finger. Just ask her, Paniqua said. It's not like she'd say no. Suppose she does. Paniqua shrugged. Then you stay friends, no biggie. Linda watched Paniqua sip her coffee and go through her email. She's a single parent, she thought. She grew up in a poor family, had been harassed by the police at an early age. It's a wonder she still had this wonderful outlook on life. Linda sat back and let her mind drift. A moment later, her phone buzzed. She pressed the answer button and placed the phone to her ear without looking at the screen. With practiced ease, she said, Hello, Linda here. Hey, Lynn. Gail, Linda looked at the caller ID. I'm downstairs. Wait, what, downstairs? Linda heard Gail's laughter through the phone's speakers. It was fresh and lively. Surprised. Linda stammered, Well, yeah, I am hungry too. Really, where are you? Downstairs. Seriously, I'm hungry, I want to eat, now. Linda thought Gail's weak chuckle was cute. Okay. She turned to Paniqua, who had unconvincingly acted like she wasn't listening. Go girl, Paniqua said. Eat something for me. I'll be down in a sec. Linda stared at the phone for a moment before pressing down on the hang-up button. She said to no one in particular as she got up from her desk, I wonder why she is here. Paniqua shrugged. Open mouth, move lips, and ask her. Linda nodded, grabbed her keys and fossil-faded black clutch wallet. She unzipped the top and made sure she had money and the good credit cards. Zipping the wallet back up, she headed out the door. I'm sure I'll be back in an hour, she said as she walked out the door. Paniqua yelled, I'm not the one you're trying to convince. She laughed. Linda saw Gail, sitting in one of the 4 lobby chairs near the front sliding glass doors. Gail smiled brightly and got up. She was wearing dark blue Promise Lego pumps, faded Levi, and a matching blue crystal blouse. Linda thought her friend looked cute and lovely. She herself had a terracotta peasant blouse and wore jeans that were not as faded as Gail's. With her Vans, she was about the same height as Gail, who was actually 2 inches shorter without the pumps. Gail met Linda halfway to the lobby and gave her a nice, firm hug. She held it for several seconds, rubbing her hand along Linda's shoulder. She stepped back and said, Lynn, it's been a while. Linda nodded. Gail grabbed her friend by the arm and led her back to the elevators. I parked in Valet and... Valet, we got extra money now. I got some, and it's buying you lunch. I was gonna... Gail waved it off as the elevator doors opened. Yeah, we need to talk. Linda hesitated. Gail pulled Linda into the elevator. Tick-tock, I'm hungry. A moment later, the elevator reached the garage floor. Gail stepped out with Linda in tow. She made her way to the opened plexiglass window and slipped the valet ticket stub through the opening. The guy behind the glass took the ticket. He checked a clipboard, stepped from behind the window, and waved for a coworker. Gail approved of the dress code: black pants, white shirt, shiny blue vest. A minute later, the two were cruising down Wilshire Boulevard, toward Restaurant Row. Gail had retracted the hardtop on her Volkswagen EOS. She enjoyed the wind that streamed down around her head and neck. Her hair flowed outward as traffic seemed to bless them by not being heavy. Gail asked, "When was the last time you ate at Fogo de Chao?" "Never. I've heard of it but never had a chance to go." "And there it is," Gail said as they pulled into the lot. It was about halfway full. "We got lucky," Gail thought. Both ladies got out and headed through the doors. The hostess said, "Bem-vindas. Como está, Miss Holloway?" "Bem obrigada, e você?" The hostess smiled and answered in English, "Good. Your table is ready." Linda said, "Ready, you expected us." The hostess name tag read, "Livia." She smiled and walked the two women to a small, somewhat private table near a back wall. "The gaucho will be out in a moment. I'll tell him your usual wine." "Obrigada." Linda leaned in close. "They expected us." Gail nodded. "I've been here a few times." Linda frowned. "I thought you were still in Lexington." She sat back. Gail said, "Are you pouting?" "No, yes, no." "I think you are." Linda slowly said, "No, I'm not pouting, just..." Gail laughed. "Kind of cute when you pout." "No." "Okay, so you're not pouting." A tall gentleman holding a bottle of Coonsuntis Barrique Pinot Noir said, "Good afternoon, Miss Holloway." He was slender and stood at 5'11". Gail approved of his close-cut black hair, dark eyebrows, and naturally red, thick lips. His eyes were bright green, and she liked his smile. "Consentus." Gail nodded. "Excellent Davy." He poured the wine into decent-sized glasses and placed 2 palm-sized discs in front of Linda and Gail. "What's this for?" Linda asked. "Green means you are ready to eat. The red means hold." Davy walked away. "How long had you been here?" Linda asked. "About 2 weeks, and before you pout again." "I wasn't pouting, I was..." "Pouting," Gail chuckled. "And my boss had me running around the city. I knew I'd get a break and I wanted to spend that free time with you. So there." Linda relaxed and slowly smiled. She felt a twinge of guilt for thinking the worst. Gail was her BFF. "Meat or side dishes first?" "Pardon," Linda said, blinking rapidly. "I'm really here for the meat. Maybe a salad, but meat definitely. And the wine." Linda took a sip. She nodded and drank deeply, finishing off half the glass as seconds. "Meat." Both women turned their discs over to the green side. The final nail in the coffin of mighty beasts that roamed the land was driven about 66 million years ago. Its impact was so devastating that their death secured a second sort of ending for a future species millions of years away. Humans consumed the remnants of this dynasty that ruled in the hundreds of millions of years. Their majestic legacy depleted, by combustion, in a mere century. Year 0. Day 0 hour, 2 minute 12 second 15. Chapter 2. Gail's face felt numb. She wasn't drunk, not quite, but the buzz she had was close enough to get her into trouble. Linda was in better shape. She only had 2 glasses of wine, and eating just bread and meat helped stave off an embarrassing end to a wonderful lunch. When the valet pulled up with the car, Linda reached for the keys. Gail didn't object and blissfully allowed the gentleman to help her ease into the passenger seat. Linda tipped him a 5 and readjusted the seat and side mirrors. The rear was okay. She looked over to make sure her friend was secured and snapped in her own seat belt. "Seems like I should take the rest of the day off," Linda stated. Gail nodded. "I think you should. We still need to talk. I'm staying at the Hilton near LAX." "The Hilton it is." Linda merged into traffic and tuned the radio to KCRW. Press play was on, and it set Linda in a sober mood. Gail just enjoyed the buzz. She was with her friend, and that was good. Later, she would drop the question. Her boss had been in a dozen high-level meetings with management at JPL in Pasadena. He was on a recruiting mission and only the top would do. When she told him of Linda and presented her credentials and past articles and paperwork, he was convinced she would be a valuable team member. He said, "Convince her. Any way you can but convince her." Linda pulled the Volkswagen into valet and was helped out. The 405 freeway had been surprisingly open, and she was able to maintain a speed of 65. The trip to the hotel was pleasant. Gail stepped out and waited for Linda to receive the ticket stub. They both walked through the sliding doors, past a clump of gibbering tourists. Gail couldn't make out the language. It sounded like it should have been Dutch. Once in the elevator, Linda cleared her throat. "What floor and how are you feeling?" Gail smiled and brushed away hair that had fallen in front of one eye. "Good, I'm feeling good, top floor." The ride to the executive suite's floors was uneventful. Gail's buzz was fading fast, but it was enough to dull her inhibitions. Once off the elevator, Gail led Linda through a hallway most people never see. The rich interior and subtle hues of brown and tan softly whispered the elegant and hidden opulence behind each door. When Gail opened the door to her suite, Linda gasped. The room was lovely and aesthetically pleasing. "By the table," Gail said. Linda walked to it and noted an iron bucket filled with ice and a bottle of champagne that no doubt cost half her week's salary. Gail pulled the bottle from the bucket. She wrapped it in one of the towels that was on the table. She grabbed the cork, twisted several times, and pulled it out. The pop sound was satisfying. Linda remarked, "You've done this a few times." Gail's laugh was soft as she poured champagne, enough to make it look easy. She handed a glass to her friend. Linda took it and sipped. "Are you trying to seduce me?" Gail caught herself from spitting the champagne out. One must not spit champagne out, she thought. Maybe. Linda sat down on the chair nearest her. "Just wondering." She took a sip. "Is it working?" Gail asked, sipping at her own glass. "Depends," Linda giggled. She couldn't keep a straight face. Gail sat on another chair. "I did miss you." Linda nodded and took another sip. She tried to make the sip seem natural and nonchalant. "I missed you, too. I really was surprised to see you today." Gail smiled. "How's the PhD coming along? I remembered you sent me an email about upcoming prelims, but you never said what happened." Linda shrugged. "It didn't go so well. I have another one set for next month. It was tough." "I can imagine. I remember mine." "But yours went so well." Gail laughed. "Yes and no." "Really?" Linda took a drink and the glass was nearly drained. Gail topped off both glasses. "One of my advisors was a sexual predator. Bastard." "What?" Gail nodded. "Yeah, he told me that he'd back me up 100% if I did him a trick or two." Shocked, Linda just stared. "I reported him and the school administration worked with the local police. I wore a body recorder. Well, after that I had to pretty much start from scratch." "Oh, so that's why you became distant suddenly. I thought it was something I did." Gail shrugged and sighed. "I couldn't tell you at the time, and when it was said and done, I got hired at Lincoln." Both women remained silent. Gail said, "Sorry to be a downer. It was on my mind and I had to tell you." "It clears a lot of things up. I felt bad for weeks, thinking I did something wrong." Gail shook her head. "Never you, but to the question I have for you." "Yes," Linda responded. "What would it take for you to delay your PhD?" Without hesitation, Linda said in one breath, "A good-paying job in a field I like with good hours and benefits." Gail drained her glass. "I can do that." "Do what?" Linda asked as she finished her glass. "Get you a great job and—" "No way, seriously." "Yes way, seriously." Linda put the glass down and looked Gail in the eyes. She had known Gail for about 10 years now, and throughout those years Gail never lied to her. Maybe withheld info, as she just discovered, but never lied outright. "How much and what do I do?" "Watch the sky, take photos, calculate heavenly bodies, stuff like the usual things astronomers do." Linda held out her glass. Gail got up. "There's more in the kitchen. You hungry? I have the munchies." Yes, please, something salty. The two laughed. A few moments later, Linda heard the familiar pop of a cork and the rustle of a bag of chips. Gail walked back to the table. She filled both glasses and placed a bowl of potato chips in the center. What's the catch? Pardon, Gail said after taking a sip. Are you seducing or recruiting? Maybe both. She took a bite of a rather large potato chip. Maybe both. She repeated the words again, but softer. Linda had to lean in to hear her. Maybe both, she thought. God, I missed you. That was the champagne talking she knew. Liquid courage, her father often said. Drink the right amount and you'll do anything and everything that is badass in the world. Then he'd shrug and finish his cup. Now whether you'll look good and survive is another question. You always have the choice to walk away. Gail's lips were soft and warm with just the right touch of moisture. Linda pressed in and felt her tongue. God, I missed you, she thought. Then with a sigh she pulled back. Why me? Gail leaned back. I really can't say much. It's an astronomer position that requires deep and out-of-box thinking. And it happens to be about your dissertation on transversal massive and mega-extraterrestrial close proximity debris cluster fields. Linda nearly dropped her glass. Gail watched the different emotions play across her friend's face. Confusion, anger, surprise, denial, excitement, acceptance, lastly joy. Linda whispered, How much? Twice the amount you're making now. She let the silence linger for a while. Will I be working for you? Gail shook her head. We'll be part of the same team. When would I start? Tomorrow, if you like. Linda's eyes teared up. Gail had to lean in closer to hear. She thought she said yes. Linda, I didn't quite hear you. The smile of her friend's face was wide. She cleared her throat and said, Yes, I'd like to start tomorrow. Mission 1 accomplished. Year 0 day, 1 hour 9 minute 36 second 10, Chapter 3. Ted Piper looked at the young woman who sat across from him. Gail had called and said Linda accepted. Linda, it is nice to meet you. They shook hands. Gail leaned back and watched. The waiter had left with Linda's and her drink order. Ted had been on his second rum and coke when they arrived. Did Gail give you a rundown on our operation? Not much, except I would be doing observations, calculations, and postulations on something related to my dissertation. Ted nodded. Pretty much. After all the paperwork has been filled out, I can tell you everything you need to know and then some. You have any problems moving to Maryland? None. My brother lives out here. He can check on our mom. I do have some pets. Not a problem. We're pet-friendly and understanding. Good, Ted raised an eyebrow. Something we need to get out in the open now. Linda hesitated a few seconds. She took a deep breath. Yes. She took another deep breath. Flying scares me. Ted paused for a moment, took a sip of his drink and looked at Gail. I see. Linda's swallow was audible. After a second sip, Ted started laughing. It was reserved. A moment later, he finished his drink. Would 5 days be enough to make the drive from L.A. to Maryland? Linda wished she had that drink in front of her. It would. She made a quick mental calculation and figured 3.75 days would work with the second and third day the longest on the road. Good. Oh, Gail mentioned you have a gift. Linda blushed. Ted pulled 2 folded pieces of paper from his suit pocket. He kept one and handed the other to Linda. She opened it. There were 3 math questions on it. Number 1, 3.1415 times 11,754.8 equals meters. Number 2, the formula for gravity. Option A M1 equals 1 quadrillion 179 trillion 340 billion 162 million 4,690 4.5 teragrams. Option B M2 equals 1 gram. Option C, R equals a half the answer from question 1. Answer in Newton to 5th place. Number 3, calculate centrifugal force. A radius equals 1,600 feet. B 1.3 RPM. C 92 kg mass. What is the centrifugal acceleration in gravity and the centrifugal force in Newton? Ted unfolded his paper. It had. Number 1. The answer is 36,927.7042 meters. Number 2. The answer is 7.23972 newtons. Number 3. The answer is 0.921633 Gs and 831.509 newtons. Would you like a pen? He asked. Linda pursed her lips. Great, she thought, no pressure. No thanks. She gave him all 3 answers. Ted blinked several times, frowned for a few seconds. Wait, what? Linda said her answers again. Gale laughed as Ted shook his head rapidly a half-dozen times. The waiter dropped off the drinks. Ted grabbed his new glass and upended it quickly. Waiter, another please. Quickly, thanks. Linda handed him the questions. He looked at both pieces of paper. Wow, wait, no, wow, just wow. He waited for his drink. When it arrived, he thanked the waiter and took a sip. Linda, I'm going to give you as much information as I am allowed. You good with that? Linda nodded. As you know, we are one of the near-Earth objects vanguards. This bit of news will hit the media in a few weeks. NASA is already working out the talking points, but several near objects that had been calculated to pass by us in a year or 2 suddenly won't. He paused. Linda frowned. Something large is disrupting existing orbits. Ted nodded. Something is. We thought maybe it could have been the elusive Planetex or maybe even a brown dwarf, but the deviation didn't fit the theory. That's where the megaclusters come in. Yes, Ted nodded again and relaxed his shoulders. You've found something. Classified. But if we were to have found something like your clusters, I would think having you on board would be better than not. Besides, there are other happenings behind closed doors that makes things interesting. Such as, Linda asked. Why astronomy? Pardon. You picked astronomy for your PhD, but you have a MS in physics and mechanical engineering, and a BS in anthropology. Now that is a wild one to toss in when you have a heavy emphasis in the practical sciences. Linda said with a rehearsed ease, I have a short attention span. Ted chuckled. I see. The waiter brought their food. Ted had lobster thermidor. Gale decided on seafood bisque, while Linda opted for a thick rib-eye and loaded baked potato. She asked for extra butter and sour cream. How do you do it, Linda? Gale exclaimed. Ted, Linda is private with that. It is okay, Gale. It just is. That's all I can say. I just know the answers. Some of the really complex questions do require me to think and even write down parts, but mostly I can look at an equation and I just know the answer. Ted nodded. Fair enough, but astronomy, why? The short answer or the long one? Ted made a show of thinking over his options. The short answer. It's the most poetic. He thought about that, and after a handful of seconds nodded. The great overdog, that heavenly beast with a star in one eye, gives a leap in the east. Linda smiled. It was one of her favorite poems. She continued, he dances upright all the way to the west and never once drops on his 4 feet to rest. Gale finished. I'm a poor underdog, but tonight I will bark with the great overdog that romps through the dark. Surprised, Linda turned to Gale. I didn't know you knew that poem. While in high school, I saw it in your notebook. You had a star next to it with the words, best poem ever. That is so sweet, Linda said, blushing. Her eyes started to tear up. What class? It was English Lit. It was first period. I remember. You sat to my right and Heather was on my left. Whatever happened to her? She married a sailor. Seriously? Gale nodded. He walked into her job one day, dressed in uniform, lifted her off her feet and walked out, just like the movie. It was awesome. Wow. Tell me about it. Suddenly the two went silent. Gale leaned in lightly toward Linda, who responded likewise. Both reached out and touched each other's hand. Linda started. I. A few seconds later, Gale nodded. Ted watched in fascination. A few seconds later, he said, Well, are we going to kiss? You're killing me here. Gale said to Linda, He really is a good boss. A bit crass at times, but otherwise a brilliant physics. Both women giggled. What? I like watching. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. But the heavens and the earth, which are now, by the same word are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. Year 1. Year 1 month 3 week 1 day 3 hour 13 minute 5 second 2. Earth date 10301031300502. Chapter 4. Ted logged into the main system and checked the folder Linda said her data was in. It supposedly verified what the computers predicted. Earth had 100 years before the next mega-cluster swarm came near. There had been other encounters. One about 120 million years ago, another about 66 million years ago, and this time. The models predicted that Earth might be hit with at least one meteor or with as many as 50. One strike was scary. 50 was terrifying. He double-clicked on the file and held his breath. A minute later, a graph appeared, Earth's worst nightmare. Pity, he thought. Earth, pockmarked by 100 massive meteorites. He sat back and reached into the bottom drawer of his desk. He gave up smoking 5 years ago and he felt better for it. But now, right now, his craving for a smoke was too strong to ignore. Just several inhales, he thought, maybe one exhale. The lone pack had 3 cigarettes in it. He grabbed the pack and pulled out a stick. No matches, he remembered. That was pointless. He put the stick back into the pack, tossed the pack back into the drawer, and left the room. He needed to talk to Linda. He also hoped Gail was nearby. Linda sat staring at a graph filled with numbers and lines. To someone outside, the image looked like something from the stock market. She turned when someone knocked lightly at her office door. Come. Ted opened the door and walked to one of the chairs at her desk. He was silent for a moment. Linda looked up. I haven't slept in 48 hours. Ted replied, I do think I won't be able to sleep in the next 48 hours. Linda asked, what's next? I sent this info up the chain. The president should get it by the morning. The chief of staff will break it up into sound bite and talking points. She'll call an emergency meeting and they'll talk about it for a few hours. There'll be more meetings. I'm sure NASA will be invited to most. At some point maybe you, will sit in front of a congressional committee and answer questions, most likely to highly charged and aggressive questions. This will be a political hot button. Groups from both sides will have something to cry about. After a few months of wasted time, the president will make an announcement to the public. We'll introduce a measure at the UN's General Assembly. This is bigger than the United States. Everyone has to have skin in this game. What can we do? Ted shrugged. Go underground or off-planet, both is my choice. Like terraform Mars, a moon base. All of the above, but terraforming would take too long. We'd have to think outside the box. I have a friend who's deep in NASA admin floated an idea of a super large space station. Only one. It's that big. He said we could make many, with each capable of holding 100,000 easy. Gail walked in. What's up? Linda turned to Gail and pushed herself a short distance from her monitor. Gail understood and approached the desk. She looked at the graph, over to Linda, then Ted, then back at the monitor. She saw the red-colored word in the lower right corner of the graph. Confirmed! After a few seconds, Gail took a deep breath and uttered one word. Fuck. Psalm 102, 25-26. Of old you founded the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. Even they will perish, but you endure, and all of them will wear out like a garment. Like clothing you will change them, and they will be changed. Year 5. Year 5 month, 7 week 4 day 6 hour 5 minute 15 second 22. Earth date, 50704060 Chapter 5. Linda woke up early but decided to stay in bed for another 10 minutes. Today's training was about fire suppression techniques and getting used to the new equipment. She thought about the day the cluster swarm was confirmed. It had been bittersweet. Her PhD secured, yet that meant Earth was doomed. Rolling over, Linda let her mind wander. She remembered the day she watched the president make the announcement. Madam President spoke in a measured tone. Her voice was calm, firm, but reassuring. My fellow Americans, and to all the citizenry of the world. 5 years ago, American astronomers at the Lincoln Laboratory in Massachusetts made a discovery of grave importance. The meteorites that struck Earth 120 million and 66 million years ago were part of a super swarm of objects that cross the Earth's orbit every 60 or so million years. After exhaustive observations and calculations, confirmed independently by other countries, we know when the next encounter will occur. Before I tell you the date, I am compelled to stress that a meteor strike of this nature is a planetary environment-changing event. It is possible to survive the strike, but only if we work now to prepare. This problem is a world problem. Every corner of the globe will be affected. Every man, woman, animal, tree, and every life form will be in danger. This event will change us forever and our planet forever. She took a drink from her glass. The world presumed it was water. It was not. The U.S. presidential seal was visible even as the glass was tilted, and half the contents drained in one swallow. Calmly, but with a slight tremor, the glass was placed back down. The next encounter will occur 103 years from now. She paused. In order to preserve the human species, we must prepare now. Not tomorrow, not 10, 30, 50, or 80 years from now, but at this very moment. She paused again. Currently, NASA has been in contact with various space agencies and space transportations companies throughout the world with the goal of developing a plan that will ensure human survival. Our military will be reaching out to the world's military to help secure our best interest. War is now irrelevant. Religious differences are irrelevant. Political party ideology is irrelevant. We are now faced with something bigger than each individual. The human species is threatened. Let me repeat myself in a different way. Companies will have to set aside profit for survival. Religious groups will have to set aside ideology for survival. Political parties will have to set aside fundamental differences. People will have to extend a hand as a gesture of peace. One nation, one group, one set of people cannot and should not do this alone. We work together or we die together. It is as simple as that. E pluribus unum. She stepped away from the podium amidst sounds of cameras rapidly clicking and a multitude of flashes. E pluribus unum had been the new God bless. Other nation leaders started using it as a closing. The world took notice when the Pope ended a mass with those simple words, E pluribus unum. From many, one. Its message was simple. We are one people, period. Gail stretched and rolled over. She found Linda next to her, felt skin, and snuggled tightly. Morning. Linda rolled over and kissed Gail lightly on the lips. It was morning, and she knew she had morning breath. Morning. Sleep well. She rolled back over, grabbing Gail's arm to wrap it tighter around her waist. Gail nodded and nuzzled her face deep into Linda's hair. It still had yesterday's sweet scent on it. I did, she inhaled deeply. You smell nice. Adruku. She cupped a breast and lightly squeezed. Linda nodded and placed her hand on top of Gail's and helped her squeeze. Gail asked, "What time is it?" She looked at the clock. 9:25. Oh, shit, Gail said, getting up. She kissed Linda on the lips firmly. I got a conference meeting in 20 minutes. Linda watched as Gail's nude form dashed into the bathroom. She looked around and yawned. Reluctantly, she got up herself, put on her nightgown that had been discarded last night, and walked into the kitchen. She put on coffee, and just as it finished brewing, Gail walked in dressed. Linda handed her a heavy stock paper cup with a plastic lid. Gail took the cup, kissed her on the lips, and quickly walked out. She'd probably just make it, Linda thought. What made the last few years living on base was their office was only about several hundred feet away, which was a double-edged knife. Linda poured herself a cup of coffee and sipped lightly. It was still hot. Gail entered the conference room just as the meeting started. The opposite wall had 5 large-screen TVs attached. All were active, with 4 showing other conference rooms. The 5th monitor had the image of what looked like a fat stone and metal caterpillar eating itself. She sat next to Walter Penlayton. She mentally classified him as a pencil-neck pretentious ass with mommy issues. He was 40 pounds underweight, smelt of sand, and drank too much coffee. Half the team hated him, the other half loathed him. Usually, he had the sense of knowing when he went too far in his seemingly weak attempted Machiavellian ways. His one main contribution was that he designed the car Haya Ken Ring, the fat stone and metal self-eating caterpillar. Gail understood that single-handedly. This man comprehensively developed a plan that gave humankind a second chance. Would statues be dedicated to him? In the distant future, probably. Today, he would be tolerated. "You're late," Walter whispered under his breath. Gale took a sip of coffee. "Your point is what? You can tell time." He scrunched his face up and visibly looked distressed. She could see the war of emotions playing across his face. "Nothing," he finally said. Gale nodded and decided not to snap out another smartass remark. Ted had slid a thick book toward Gale. She stopped it from colliding into her coffee and looked at the title. "A New Hope." She looked up. Ted nodded and smiled. The first important page of the book was the table of content. The Car Hayaken Project. Content. Abstract. Introduction. System model. Problem statement. Materials gathered. Construction, Phase 1. Personnel. Transportation. Life support. Emergency preparedness. Ring assembly, integrity and movement. Solution. Conclusion. She flipped through the pages to personnel. The subsections were skill level of workers, more reliance of automation, and personnel screening and selection. Further into the screening section, she found the header titled Objectively Deciding Against Certain Groups. Further still, she found Political Identification and Extremist Values. Security Council finally agreed to the proposals. The General Secretary will oversee the committee selections, and general powers over the Car Hayaken ring will be given to the UN, the United States, China, Russia, South Korea, the Netherlands and Japan will oversee construction. The EU, Australia, Canada, the US, Mexico, and India will oversee personnel. The UK, Germany, US, China, Russia, and Italy will oversee interior habitat conversion. Russia and China have life support, while the US will supply construction equipment and handle most of the vehicular launches. There are more details to work out, but the framework is in place. Brazil has been selected as a primary launch point. Gale snapped her head up. The head of NASA had just finished talking. A small lump formed in the middle of her stomach at the realization that she wasn't listening. Then the main screen image switched to the POTUS. Even though her hair color had faded a bit from less amber to more gray, and underneath her eyes had seemed a little puffier than usual, she still looked good for her age, Gale thought. "Greetings, fellow citizens of the United States of America. As you are aware, the Earth will face its greatest challenge in over 60 million years. Yesterday, in an extraordinary act of universal cooperation, the UN Security Council passed many resolutions. The primary resolution grants the United Nations project management over the construction of the Car Hayaken ring. Over the next few years, the United States will be gearing up for one of the greatest undertakings in our nation's history. The American people and the rest of the world will construct a habitat that will be 10 kilometers in diameter. It'll be able to house 8 million people. It will be self-sufficient, and it will only be the first of many. Earth will be facing a disaster we cannot divert. The only thing we can do is make sure humans survive. Because we know the Earth will not be destroyed, we have a second plan in motion. We will move most of our population underground. There will be vast underground cities, more vibrant than anything we have achieved. And the third and last idea will be to search for habitable planets elsewhere as we start terraforming the likes of Mars and building bases on the Moon and other heavenly satellites. As I stand here in front of you, today, our future is secured. We as a people will not die but live on. We are human, e pluribus unum. The screens went dark. Ted faced everyone. This is it, people. It's official. Project E Pluribus Unum has been approved and we move on to the next phase. He handed out sealed folders to everyone at the table. Walter and I will be flying out to Pasadena tomorrow. Gale, you're in charge while I'm gone. I'll expect we'll all relocate to California in the next month, so keep that in mind when making future plans. Are there any questions? Cindy, who sat at the lower right corner from Ted's point of view, cleared her throat. Has NASA finalized the date? Ted nodded. Pretty much, but that is revised often. We'll need to finish the ring in 10 years. That's all 16 segments. Sober faces nodded. Gale asked, will any of us be expected to travel out there? Ted nodded. At some point, possibly. After the first ring is completed, we think the subsequent rings will take 5 years to finish. I'm thinking we will all move to the first ring and... Roy, one of the engineers, asked, "What about the underground projects? And there are other options." Colonization and underground. The Army Corps of Engineers has been placed in charge of Earthworm, and Virgin Galactic has the contract for US and Europe to colonize space. SpaceX, Blue Origin, ARCA, Copenhagen Suborbitals, and a few others are either building launch vehicles and are planning on building smaller space stations throughout the solar system. Roy sat back sighing. "This is it." Ted answered. "You guys can come talk to me for mission assignment. No one is going to force you to Project Unum, but I know you all to be very capable and highly competent engineers and scientists. I got tagged as one of the project managers because of your hard work and dedication. I would really want to bring you all along this unprecedented endeavor, but I will understand if you want to drop out or pursue the other ventures. Let me know and I'll make some phone calls." He shrugged. "That's all I can promise." He looked at each of the faces staring back. "Anyone else, if not, see me in my office later." He paused. "Okay, adjourned. Then, Gail, stay for a moment, please." Gail nodded and gave Walter a toothy smile. Walter frowned, gathered his paper notepad and tablet, and walked out. "What do you think?" Ted finally said after the last person walked out. "Half are gone. They had fun, but I don't think they want space travel on their resume, and I get the feeling that this project is. Until death do we part, right?" Ted nodded. Gail waited a moment. "You're wondering if I'm on board." Ted furrowed his eyebrows and slowly tightened one hand on top of a closed fist. He brought both hands close to his lips and almost imperceptibly nodded. "Ted, of course I'm in. How can I not be?" His shoulders relaxed a bit, then seemingly from an afterthought tensed back up again. "Let me worry about Linda. We talked about something like this, but I'm not exactly sure where she stands." He looked worried but nodded. Gail got up and left the room to Ted and his thoughts. Linda sat on the living room couch, looking at a documentary on the Shroud of Turin. She thought it was good up to the point where some PhD said that Jesus' body created an event horizon and therefore never really touched the shroud. Well, that just messed with a perfectly commissioned, latently biased show. Gail walked in. "Babe." Linda looked up and smiled. This was their weekend, and she hoped Gail wouldn't be too long in her meeting. "We need to seriously talk." Linda nearly panicked. She hastily turned the TV off. "The project has a green light, and..." "That's wonderful. We'll be going into space." Linda became quiet. She forgot about that part. "Okay, I'll go." Her voice was very weak. "Now, babe, this is very important, and I'm going with you." "I really would like you." "Wait, what did you say?" "I'm going with you." Gail blinked several times. She held her breath. "Seriously?" Linda nodded. "I made that promise, seriously." Gail teared up. Suppose Linda wanted to work on the other projects. Would she be able to tell her the same thing? "I made a promise." "It'll be okay," she said. Linda nodded. Sure, it'll be okay. I only get dizzy when I look down." The end of part 1. Thank you for listening to E Pluribus Unum chapters 1 through 5. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. We are committed to creating human-written original audio stories. Until then.
Angry, raining down boulders of dust, set ablaze today, their death is a must. Demons of rocks approach, rain of chaos to land, an epic song, an orchestra of death, 60 million years to pass, notes of debris set to sound. It is played loud and strong to pummel from above on water cities and lands. A scientist looks to the sky, her thoughts secure humankind's fate. Doom is set, there is an end date, a plan is presented.